Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and oh boy do I have a corker of a replay for you today. This one has it all the drama you could wish for in a World of Tanks replay. Loads of kills, lots of damage, arsehole teammates, people crying like little bitches in chat, it's all in this battle. Driving the Comet for us today is Grom. The Comet, of course, being the British Tier 7 medium tank, comes after the Cromwell and before the Mark I Centurion. And the Comet is a very, very good tank. It's fast, it's mobile, it's got a high DPM gun, it's got great gun depression. The armour is pretty bad, except for the gun mantlet, which can be quite troll, and makes the Comet very, very good at working ridgelines. You get this tank on a ridgeline with enemy tanks on the other side. You use the great mobility to pop in and out, the great gun depression to actually get the gun pointed at the targets on the other side of the ridge, the high DPM to punish them, and the great gun mantlet armour to bounce any shots that they manage to send back in your way, which is going to make it quite ironic because Grom does almost none of that in the Comet in this particular battle. Grom is in fact going to spend the majority of the beginning of this match in this exact spot here. Hold down, in a bush, and just taking shots at the enemy tanks as they pretty much do exactly the same thing on the opposite ridge. And it's going to work out reasonably well. In fact, he's just gotten himself his first kill. But he's not going to take any chances. I mean, he doesn't know how many enemy tanks are on the other side of that ridge, and the tanks that are with him don't seem to be too keen to push around, although it could be that they're not too keen to push around because the Comet is camping in a bush. Still, for the moment he has targets to shoot out, like this Japanese Tiger over here, the heavy tank number 6, although he did. He's now disappeared from view. There are some other good players on the team, by the way. Particularly the T-67 and the Type 64. The Type 64's been doing a very good job of running interference and covering the gap in the valley between two different elements on Grom's team. And the T-67 is also going to do very, very well. That does not, of course, mean that just because they play well, they're not complete arsehats, as we're going to see as this battle develops. For now, everybody is more than content to just camp bush. Although, well, here's the thing. Yes, he's got targets to shoot at, but that is the 3001P, one of the enemy mediums. He's already killed the M4, the Lux is dead, he's seen the Chinook and the AMX ELC over there, so realistically, what other enemy tanks are likely to be over on the opposite ridge? No, not over there. He's still taking shots at the 3001B and scoring hits, and the 3001B is about to get hammer-racked. Hey, there it goes. So, I realise that Grom's probably going to come under a fair amount of criticism in the comments for basically just camping this bush throughout the first couple of minutes of the game and taking shots, well, trying to take shots with his armour piercing through that wooden structure over there as the Type 64 goes around to finish off the Jagdpanzer IV, instead of pushing this flank. Because realistically speaking, there is unlikely, looking at the team list, unlikely on the ridge opposite over there to be anything other than the Chinook and the ELC. They've already killed the Sherman. What other medium tanks are we likely to have over there? And it's at this point where he decides to go for it. Unfortunately, it's also at this point where his team collapses like a house of cards. At the point where the Type 64 made his run on that Jagdpanzer IV, the scores were 3 kills each, and in the space of a minute, they're now losing 4-10. So, however critical you may be, rightly or wrongly, about Grom's decision to camp for the first 3 minutes of this match, I sincerely doubt it would have made much difference to the scorelines at this point of the game. His entire team has collapsed over on the other side of the map. There are now only 5 of them left. They have managed to pull a kill back. And it's at this point, when you're outnumbered 2-1, that the team really should be sticking together, and yet they bomb burst and split in all different directions. The T-67 and the Cromwell are heading for the enemy base. The Type 64 is doing a good job of spotting in the middle there, and Grom is heading back to defend the flag. Now, with this kind of scoreline, it's highly unlikely that the enemy team is going to try to win by capping, but, well, stranger things happen in World of Tanks. There's the Leopard, he's disappeared, blind shot, kills him. There was also that heavy tank number 6 down there threatening the base, although he's not capping at the moment. However, put yourself in the position of the enemy team. If you look at this scoreline, you're winning 11-8, and there is a Cromwell backed up by T-67, alarmingly close to your cap. When a team is losing, like Grom's team are losing now, it's likely that they are going to try to win by capping, which makes it likely that these enemy tanks are instead going to be rushing back to defend their flag. And bang, there we go. He's killed the VK. Here's the Tiger. He's not going to remain spotted forever, however. Puts a shot out. It's likely that one went in. Unfortunately, they've lost the Cromwells, just the T-67, the Type 64, and Grom in the Comet remaining against 5 enemies. Grom knows that the Tiger's down there somewhere. He's pinging the map to alert his team. The Type 64's looking for the spot. He's on perilously low health. And it's around about then that the Tiger pops up. And he's almost certainly seen the Type 64, and it looks like he's going for the ram. The Type 64 is nobody's fool, and he's trying to avoid it, but, well, the Tiger only has to hit him once, so the Type 64's dead, although he did take a couple of hits from both the Type 64 and the T-67 on the opposite hill, and then the Tiger disappears, and now it's 2 of them against 5, and the Type 64 did play a decent match up until this point, but that does not mean he's not a complete arse biscuit, because he in fact is, and this is where it starts in chat. Now he's dead, he's got nothing better to do than demand that everybody report the T-67, because he didn't support him. I think you're going to find that, well, Grom's fire at the Tiger was mostly ineffective there, and the T-67 was the only one who was supporting you. So I'm not quite sure what he's complaining about, but that isn't going to stop him. And then to make matters worse, he goes and adds injury to insult by telling the enemy team exactly where the T-67 and Grom are, and reports on how much health they have remaining. So Grom starts shooting up, as does the T-67, the Tiger, as he's caught in the open there. And at this point I did have a certain measure of sympathy for the guy in the T-67 who hasn't done any harm to anybody so far in this game, other than the enemy team. But that feeling of sympathy was not going to last for very long, because it turns out the T-67 is a complete cock-goblet as well. Grom's relocating after being spotted, the T-67 keeps putting fire into the Tiger, and then he gets bum-rushed by, well, everything but the E-25. Both the artillery and the IS appeared and finished him off. And then the T-67 starts demanding that everybody reports a clicker, which is kind of bizarre because that's a derogatory term for an artillery player. But it was the IS who killed him, so that makes no sense whatsoever. So while the T-67 and the Type 64 are having a good argument in chat, Grom takes advantage of the enemy team being spotted momentarily to finish off one of the artillery, and then starts taking some shots at the IS. He backs off so that he's not going to be spotted by the IS when firing through the bush, but he does get spotted by somebody else. Now the IS could not have spotted him there, which means somebody else has line of sight. Could it be the E-25? Doesn't really matter. If anybody has him spotted, the IS can see him. Artillery takes a shot, and there it is. That's the guy who spotted him. It's the Tiger. He's worked his way around. Grom has either got to bypass this guy and get on that other ridge, or kill him. Grom pops his turret with an ammo rack, aided by a little bit of friendly fire there from the IS. Grom dives around the corner, gets something solid between himself and that IS. Still doesn't know where the E-25 is, however. And an E-25, oh, there we go, he's taking a hit. The E-25 is down there somewhere. With the rapid-firing 75mm gun on an E-25, he can wreck a Cromwell in very, very short order. Grom was lucky the shot went into his tracks, did not disable him, which could have been disastrous with an IS pursuing him, and one surviving artillery trying to finish him off. There's the E-25, scores a hit, takes a hit. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. That's not something that E-25 is going to be proud of. Grom has to keep moving though. E-25 may be dead, but he's given his position away, and he's still got that IS on the hill behind him, and artillery is going to be trying to end him. There's the artillery shot. Comfortable miss, however, no problem. And he should by now be undetected again. So let's just review what's been happening in chat while Grom has been equalising the enemy team. The T-67, who I initially felt some sympathy for as he became the subject of the rage from the Type 64, has decided that apparently the best way to divert attention away from himself is to focus it all on Grom, and he starts off by calling Grom a bot. Now, as diversionary tactics go, it's not a particularly good one, because let's say for the moment that it's true. It isn't, but let's say it is. At the point where the T-67 was calling Grom a bot, Grom was on about 4 or 5 kills. So that means you just got comprehensively outplayed by a bot, and that, I'm afraid, says more about you than it does about Grom. Undeterred, the T-67 changes tactics, and despite all evidence to the contrary, starts accusing Grom of being a camper, and it initially looks as if he's managed to finally swing the Type 64 around to his way of thinking, but only initially. The Type 64 is going to be an arsehole to everybody, but mostly to Grom, although by extension, since Grom is the last surviving tank on his team, he's being an arsehole to his entire team. Grom spots the IS. The Type 64 starts demanding that everybody kill him so he doesn't get a Kolobanov's medal. Now, Grom's been spotted, and he's getting shot at, so quite why the Type 64 then feels it's necessary to report his position to the enemy team, I'm not sure. Maybe he's just not that smart. But anyway, back to the action. The Comet is actually reasonably good at firing on the move. It can fit a vertical stabilizer, for example, unlike the Cromwell. Unfortunately, if you're shooting at the front of an IS with standard ammunition in the Comet, which is what Grom's been doing so far, he's only just now switched to his premium ammunition, you need to hit weak spots. And you can't really hit weak spots at the front of an IS 150 metres away while firing on the move, and he has to keep moving because enemy artillery is still in play, and that enemy artillery player has 2 kills, so he's going to be reasonably good. So Grom decides, screw this, breaks contact, sweeps around to try to get behind the IS. The Type 64 is of course telling the enemy team exactly what he's doing while he's doing this, so all hopes of surprise are completely out of the window. It's going to come down to a straight damage trade with the IS because he is facing in this direction thanks to the Type 64. His first shot goes in, the IS hits him. He's using auto-aim in anticipation of getting into a close-range dogfight with the IS, but the IS is backing off and he doesn't have the engine power to get around him. He disengages auto-aim after bouncing off his upper glacis and manages to finish him off before the IS can reload and take a second shot. Much to the displeasure of the Type 64, who seems uncommonly upset that he might actually be going to win this game. You see, most random battles in World of Tanks are 15 versus 15. This one wasn't. This one was 13 versus 17 because the Type 64 and the T-67 may as well have been on the enemy team. Well, I say most random battles in World of Tanks are 15 versus 15. There's a... how can I put this? There's a fairly strong subgroup of the community who feel that most random battles in World of Tanks are not 15 versus 15, they're 1 versus 29. And there's a lot to be said for that argument. So he's on 7 kills, there's a potential Radley Walters medal and Kolobanov's medal. But it's not in the bag yet. He's still got to find and kill that artillery, and you have to anticipate the artillery being in concealment and getting the first shot off, and a penetrating high explosive hit on a Comet from an artillery, well, the Comet's not exactly blessed with an overabundance of armour, and it could kill him. Meanwhile, the Type 64 has been... Well, he started an argument with the KV-1 on his team a moment ago. I'm not quite sure what all that was about. And the T-67, who's possibly feeling neglected, has been jumping in to have a go as well. Grom decides there isn't an awful lot of time left. Artillery could be hiding anywhere. He's going to have to draw him out by attempting to cap. Artillery is likely to be in those bushes over there, but Grom is not spotted. So he knows, well, he knows that artillery knows he's in the cap circle, but artillery does not know exactly where he is. And there's the 2-minute warning. So if that artillery is going to make a move, it's going to have to be soon. He doesn't have an awful lot of time left. Grom's scanning the tree line over there for signs of movement. He's looking for bushes and trees falling. There it is. He saw him coming, managed to get 1 shot off, didn't really have to aim. The gun was pointed in that direction anyway. The guerrilla's now a 1-shot kill. He's stopped behind the building, and he's more than 50 metres away, so he's going to be undetected again. There it goes. Grom's going to have to move in. The artillery is a 1-shot kill for Grom. Grom is potentially a 1-shot kill for the artillery. Artie takes the first shot, misses. Grom secures the win. And that's probably really, really upset the complete arsehole in the Type 64 and his little douchebag friend in the T-67 as well. And that makes me really happy. So, Grom did quite well out of that game with an Ace Tanker badge, Radley Walters, Kolobanovs, High Caliber and Top Gun. But, in my estimation, far more important than that is that he severely pissed off the 2 douche nozzles in the T-67 and the Type 64, particularly the Type 64, who started it all. And if the T67 had only shut up, I mean, that's all he had to do. I initially felt some sympathy for the T67, as he was the original subject of the rage of the Type 64, but it didn't take long for him to show his true colours as well, did it? And he soon got stuck into the general slagging off that was going on in chat in that battle. The T67 actually did very well in this game. He finished second only to Grom as far as damage done and experience was concerned. And let's not forget, he's just a tier 5 tank destroyer in a tier 7 game. All he had to do for that to be a match he could be proud of was to shut his big mouth. But the raging arsehole in him rose to the surface, and that was just too much effort. The Type 64 as well, if you just look at the raw numbers, you could say that he wasn't the worst player on his team. And you'd be wrong. He wasn't just the worst player on his team, he wasn't just the worst player in that entire game, he's one of the worst players I have ever seen in 5 years of playing World of Tanks. Because it's not all about the damage that you do when your tank's alive, it's about not doing any damage when your tank's dead. And the Type 64, and to a lesser degree the T67, failed on that account. Nevertheless, they amused me greatly. Especially since they failed, and Grom was able to secure a win against all the odds in that game. So well done, Grom, and I hope you guys have also been amused by today's video. That's it for today, folks. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.